Our kidneys are responsible for neutralizing harmful elements, as well as for removing toxins. And of course, in order to keep our kidneys in a healthy, normal state, it is necessary to monitor what we eat. And in particular, not to eat those foods that are harmful to our kidneys. And it was in this video that I collected the food that should not be eaten if we want to save our kidneys. So watch the video to the end, it will be very interesting and useful. So, the first thing to say is excessive sodium intake. Because if we eat too much sodium-rich food for too long, then over time it leads to an increase in our kidneys and their cells. It will also lead to kidney fibrosis, which will provoke their hardening, loss of their functions and eventually lead to kidney failure. The thing is that when we consume too much sodium, it really reduces the ability of our kidneys to filter our waste products. Also, excessive sodium intake can contribute to an increase in blood pressure. Blood pressure is such an insidious thing that pulls a whole tangle of additional problems. This also provokes atherosclerosis, that is, as a consequence of a heart attack, strokes, and blood pressure also has a negative effect on the kidneys. And scientists unequivocally say that if you want to save your kidneys, then the use of sodium should be dosed. And what is sodium? First of all, this is our well-known table salt. Of course, it makes no sense to completely exclude sodium from our diet, because scientists have also calculated for a long time that a normal adult healthy person needs to consume from 2 to 5 grams of salt a day. And this means that it is completely excluded, that is, eating less than 2 grams is harmful for us, but eating more than 5 grams is also harmful for us. Therefore, there is such a golden mean, as they say, everything is good in moderation. From 2 to 5 grams, no more, no less. The problem is that the average modern resident uses salt, as a rule, 10 to 15 grams per day. Because we actively salt food and eat foods that are already rich in salt, even often without realizing it. That is, we buy a ready-made factory product and automatically increase our daily dose of sodium, harming our kidneys. This may include, for example, such products as canned meat, any other meat products such as ham, sausage, and so on. Frozen foods are also usually very rich in sodium. As a rule, canned food is also actively seasoned with salt. So we can eat, for example, beans from a jar, believing that beans are a good healthy product, but we do not suspect that if it is from a jar, then most likely there is too much salt for us. Various sauces and salad dressings, ketchups, ready-to-eat foods, even bread, as a rule, contains a fairly solid dose salt. And also just the habit of salting food. We cook ourselves a healthy buckwheat, salt it. We make ourselves a very useful fish, we will also salt it. All together, in total, this provides excessive sodium intake. Let's move on. The next item is sugary drinks. Of course, it is well known that the use of sweet soda significantly increases the risk of obesity and diabetes, and is also pro-inflammatory, provokes chronic diseases, accelerates the aging process, and so on. But a separate study was conducted on the kidneys, and it showed that if a person consumes 2 or more servings of a sweet drink per day, this leads to a very rapid decrease in kidney function. The fact is that those lethal doses of sugar contained in such soda reduce the filtration rate of our kidneys. There is also a connection between increased consumption of carbonated drinks and the formation of kidney stones. The thing is that phosphoric acid is very often added to soda. So various sodas, generally speaking, according to all the canons of a healthy diet, should be banned. Not only because of their shock load on the kidneys, but also because of their shock load on almost all organs and tissues of our body. Let's move on. The next point is excessive protein intake. Again, I emphasize, it is excessive. Just like with salt, there is a golden mean, and with protein, too, it is. An ordinary person needs to consume about 1 gram of protein for every kilogram of body weight. If you are actively involved in sports, then this is about 1.5 grams for every kilogram of your body weight. Consuming less than 1 gram is bad, and consuming more than 2 grams per kilogram of body weight is also bad. And this can lead to negative consequences for our kidneys. So a study was conducted, where it turned out that those people who consumed an increased amount of red meat daily during their lifetime had a much higher risk of developing chronic kidney disease. By the way, that study showed that red meat is worse from the point of view of kidneys than white meat, or protein from plant sources. The fact is that increased protein intake creates an additional burden on our kidneys, so nutritionists recommend, firstly, not to overeat red meat, and secondly, in general, not to overeat protein, and thirdly, to ensure diversity, to consume protein in the form of white meat, that is, poultry, in the form of fish and of course from vegetable sources. From vegetable sources, for example, legumes are the champions. Protein is also contained in cereals and you can add a little more nuts. By the way, you should be careful with nuts. Nuts are certainly very useful products, but the food is quite heavy and they also need to be dosed. No more than a handful a day. Let's move on. The following products that are harmful to our kidneys are products enriched with purines. These include, for example, fatty broths and offal, various canned meat and fish. The fact is that when purines are destroyed, they form uric acid, and its excess is excreted by the kidneys. And if the kidneys cannot cope with this load, then uric acid begins to settle in the joints, tendons, and as a result, gout and kidney stones can develop. It is also worth mentioning separately about spicy spices. Of course, many of us love them, although not everyone, but it's not for nothing that spicy food is considered unhealthy. This is an increased stress for our gastrointestinal tract, which is well known and we can feel it literally right away. But also spicy spices cause irritation in our kidneys and negatively affect their functional activity. And of course it was impossible not to say in this video about bad habits, smoking and alcohol. I think everything is clear here, everything is obvious. It's just that if I hadn't said about it, then you probably might have wondered why it wasn't said about such a basic obvious thing. In general, there certainly can be no alternative opinions and disputes. Yes, bad habits certainly negatively affect our kidneys. And if you liked this video, then like and subscribe to my channel. See you later.